My name is Shelley, and I lost my 22-year-old son very unexpectedly last year to suicide. At times it feels like forever, and at times it feels like just yesterday. I've been through all the firsts, and it was horrible, but at least now I feel like I can handle the worst of them. The anniversaries, his birthday, the holidays, the special days, and just those lazy summer days when he suddenly pops into my head and my heart aches with missing him. I remember the days and weeks that followed his death in bits and pieces, feelings and vague images. I remember going out to his grave with his sister and one of his friends and planting flowers while my husband carefully and painstakingly carved a handmade marker to place on his grave. It was therapeutic for me. Even though it was hard, at least I felt purposeful. While we worked, I played songs off his iPod in my car with the doors and windows wide open. Sometimes I look for signs, and sometimes I even find them. I had to write a very important exam last year, and just as I pulled into the parking lot, a song came on the radio that always made me think of him, one that I'd sent him lyrics to in a letter. I like to think he sent it to me that day to give me strength. I waited impatiently for him to visit me in a dream, and I was so dismayed when it didn't happen, and so jealous of everyone that mentioned dreaming about him. But I made peace with that too. My daughter graduated just 2 weeks after we lost her big brother. I still can't look at the pictures without crying. The look of grief on everybody's face gets me every time. Returning to work was a hard road for me. As a paramedic, it's inevitable that at some point I'll have a call that hits uncomfortably close to home. And sure enough, my second day back, I responded to a young man similar to my Keenan, with a lot of the same struggles. I made it through the call, and I gave the boy the same care I'd give to my own kids, and he thanked me, and he held my hand. And then I brought him past the nursing station, and they rolled his eyes because they recognized him from the week before where he'd been rude. I left him in a room, and then I went out and yelled at the nurses about compassion and stereotyping, and how sometimes it's attitudes like theirs that can push someone over the edge. And then I, along with management, decided 2 weeks off more would be in order. I'm often the first friendly face someone will see during a crisis. If I can provide a little comfort, a little kindness, maybe I can spare someone else the same fate as my Keenan. And maybe somehow, by sharing a little of myself, I can help my own healing too. Summer went on, and life went on, and sometimes I resented it. But gradually I started having more and more days where I felt like I could go on too. I still tortured myself with thoughts about what I might have done differently, how I might have changed the outcome, wondering if every choice I made during his short life led us to this day. Christmas can be an especially difficult time of year, with all the emphasis placed on family and being together. It's easy to get lost in the grief. Well-meaning people will offer advice, and sometimes it's welcome, other times not so much. People don't always know what to say, and sometimes seem incredibly insensitive. I try not to take it personally, and I understand how hard it can be for someone to find the right words. I try to remind myself of the sentiment behind it, even when the words themselves seem to hurt. The important thing for me to remember is this is my own journey. Others who've come before can tell me what worked for them, but no one can predict what'll work for me because every person is individual, and so it's the way they'll grieve. I could share with you some of the things that worked for me, and I could share some of the things well-meaning people shared with me, mostly on my Facebook wall and mostly left ignored, skimmed over, and then usually promptly hidden from view. But I think that ultimately everyone eventually finds their own way, and what works for some would be so wrong for others. Christmas last year, 6 months since I lost my little boy. I dreaded it. I hated it. I wanted nothing to do with it. I didn't want to see lights. I didn't want to see trees. I didn't want to shop for presents. and see all the things that I knew my Keenan would have liked. I waited until the last minute to make a decision on the tree, and I finally bought a cheap, ugly little tree that was only 4 feet tall, and I grudgingly put it up in my living room. Decorating was awful. My daughter came to help, but her heart wasn't in it either. And when I got to the box with baby's first Christmas, and all the decorations that he'd made or been given in childhood, I had to leave the room. To be honest, I didn't know what to expect when I opened those boxes this year. I didn't remember if I'd lovingly wrapped them up or hurriedly buried them at the bottom of tangles of garland and lights. Memory loss can be part of grieving too. I sometimes have to remember to be gentle with myself when I forget details, forget what I'm doing, forget what I'm saying. It can be frustrating, but knowing it's part of the process can help. Sometimes I'll be in the middle of a thought and just trail off, no idea what the core idea was. My tree is currently residing in the garage, wrapped in a garbage bag. I'll pull it out, make it look pretty, give it a spot in the living room. I might even enjoy it a little bit. Dinner was a challenge too. My older son, Keenan's big brother, didn't even want to come. At the last minute, he decided to come, but it was very subdued. I've seen the little inspirational sayings making the rounds. I've seen a suggestion to set a place at the table for the loved one. That might work for some, but I couldn't do it. And to be honest, just reading about it made me mad. Irrationally, but most decidedly mad. I can't predict how I'm going to feel this year. I don't know if it'll be easier, the same. I only know that this is something I'll find a way to accept and that it will get a little easier with each passing year. I'm blindly groping in the dark, just as I think everyone does when confronted with an unimaginable loss. And what helps me get through to the light is the belief that the light is still there. And that somehow I can carry my little boy with me to give me strength. The rest of our family is forever changed. We're all coping in our own way, sometimes together and sometimes alone. My kids know that if they need me, I'm there. It's sometimes hard for me to walk that fine line, to hide my pain for fear that it'll upset the others, because I'm the glue. This is my role and I'm proud of it. I hold it close to me like a security blanket, knowing that no matter what, I'll be there for the ones he left behind. Winter is a good time of year for giving. People tend to be in the spirit of Christmas. There's charities to get involved in. There are a number of things I can do to honor his memory. I needed to find a purpose, some way to honor him while helping people who really need it. I've gotten involved in a couple community groups whose purpose it is to help people who need it most, and I find it healing. My work allows me to get very close to people. I often see some of the most vulnerable members of society. I can and have used my own experience to offer comfort and understanding, and with every person I share, my own grief gets a little more bearable. Honestly, I always marveled at people who could carry on after something that was so unimaginable to me. Now I understand a little better, because I'm part of this little club, this club that I never wanted to be a part of and never imagined I would. I know that I'm different now. And different's not necessarily bad. And I can talk about it now. Sometimes I don't even cry at all. I can still remember the first time I laughed and being startled by the sound of my own laughter. It felt so alien. Sometimes people say to me, "Here I am going on about my little problems and you've been through so much." But that's not fair to them. My grief does not negate anyone else's. We're all entitled to our own grief. No matter what the circumstances, it's your journey, and you shouldn't have to apologize for your feelings. I can't help wondering sometimes if things would be different if only I had done things differently, second-guessing all my decisions, all my actions, everything I did during his whole lifetime. I try to make sense of it, but how can I make sense of such a senseless thing? I do know intellectually that blaming myself, blaming others, is futile. But my heart sometimes forgets that. Nothing will bring my little boy back. but I can honor him. And I think he would have liked that.